All right, here we are today on the Metal Voice live stream. It's been a while. Brought to you by Heavy Montreal, which is coming to you end of July, by the way. There we go. Look at that. Let me just show everybody what Giles is holding up, even though it's a last second kind of thingy.
Nothing
Having
lost.
a little bit of a lag today, everybody. So if there's a little bit of a lag, there we are. Oh, there we go. There it is. Giles,
Nothing last second about this. This is a great record. Starbreaker Dysphoria. This is Tony Harnell, obviously known mostly for TNT, and Magnus Carlsen, Primal Fear. This is their on again, off again. It's been more off again lately than on again.
uh-huh.
Project, the third album, and it's my one of my picks of. Excuse me. I mean, it's not hard because it's early in the year, but this would probably be my album of the year so far.
Jeez, really early. Look at that. All right.
Really early. Album of the year so far. And it's definitely going to be on my top five for the year because this is a great record. Can you see that?
I can see
Starbreak,
that. Yes, I can. Yes, it's up. And
melodic metal, hard rock, great vocals, big catchy choruses. Creative songwriting.
okay, rated out of 10 right off the bat, since it's not even on the agenda today.
8 out of 10.
Oh, Giles, that's a big number for you. Eight. Eight out
It's
of
on the
10.
it's on the agenda. I put it on the agenda
Yeah, we
today.
just put on the agenda like 5 minutes ago before we went live. All
Yeah,
right, here we
Star
go. You ready
is
for
for
this?
yes.
All right, Giles. So, today on the show, yes, thank you very much for that. What is it called again?
Starbreaker Dysphoria.
Starbreaker Dysphoria. Thank you very much. Also
Only
on the agenda today, okay, Manowar, their new EP called The Final Battle Part 1.
yes.
That is being released right now, as you told me, at their shows. You could buy it at their shows only, and then at the end of May, you can purchase it on the
Also,
on
also,
streaming.
also available on iTunes
Yes,
for those of
yes.
you
Okay.
that live in the 21st century.
Also in the Manowar realm, we have the Into the Glory ride, which is a remix, and a remaster that will be released. That is also available at their shows, I
Also
guess.
available, also available at the shows and on iTunes, and also Hail to England,
And Hail to England, which is again a remaster
a
and a
remix,
remix.
primarily a remix.
Okay,
That's
and
the that's
also we'll be sure, and also we'll be talking about a new Revenge, one of Tim Ripper Owens' new projects or continuing projects, and L.A. Guns, The Devil You Know. But we will begin with Manowar, what we know as Manowar. So right off the bat, Giles, tell me about your your thoughts about this new EP. And by the way, I'm wearing my Blackberry shirt today. For those of you hardcore Blackberry fans, I had the shirt and I realized I didn't have it on. But it's it's a legacy now. There we go. Blackberry.
BlackBerry.
Brought to you by Blackberry.
What's BlackBerry?
Blackberry are the phones that no longer people buy.
Yeah, I thought that. I'm like, why would you
I don't know.
have that?
Because I had a BlackBerry shirt when I had back in 10 years ago and I had a BlackBerry phone. And now I'm just,
Oh,
I work at a company where I get a lot of shirts like this. So there you go.
right. And so you had a BlackBerry. So we're reviewing your BlackBerry shirt as well.
Yes, we are. All right, right off the bat, Giles.
All right. Well, Manowar, the Final Battle, Part One. Like a little bit of background. Apparently, there's going to be three different EPs, presumably with 4 tracks each. So one would assume that it's you put all three together, it is meant to constitute the new album. So
Mm-hmm.
one would assume each EP will have 4 tracks. Therefore, there will be 12 tracks total. Now, where we run into a wee bit of a problem
Wee bit of a problem.
is a bit of a problem is that, and I'm just trying to bring this up on the screen here. I can't. Is the first song is an introduction, an instrumental intro. So we're already down 1 track,
Yeah,
and then so there we go. Now we of a 4 track EP, we are now down 1 track.
yeah.
Okay, so Manowar are known for their intros. This is called March
Of the heroes
into.
into Valhalla.
It's an intro. It goes about 3 minutes. Okay,
Symphonic.
track two, Blood and Steel is extremely, I feel, generic, typical kind of Manowar song that could have been found on the last record, The Lord of Steel, which I found to be quite an unremarkable record. So there's nothing really grabbing me about Blood and Steel Track 2.
Yeah.
Track 3, Sword of the Highlands, is a power ballad. It's a pretty good track, actually, if you like that sort of thing. Not too bad at all. I mean, if you're into Manowar, you've got to understand that the whole, men with swords and Dungeons and Dragons. Not that this is particularly about Dungeons and Dragons. It's about the Scots, the clansmen. But this kind of battle and warriors and things like that has been done to death by Manowar. So this is
Big
yet
time.
another track that falls into that category. So I mean, good for them. If you're into Manowar, you've got to be accepting of that. And I was a big Manowar fan. They totally lost me on the last three, maybe four records. This song's okay. It's a ballad. It almost sounds like Manowar does Journey to me. So
Yep.
not gonna make any friends saying that. But I can't lie. This band used to be one of my favorite bands in the whole world. But after Warriors of the World, I've just found their output to be complete and utter cock. So, and I don't mind saying that. Track
Jeez.
four, track four, You Shall Die Before I Die, does not feature Eric Adams. It has I'm not sure who
There,
the
there, there.
I'm not sure who the vocalist or the spoken word thing is, but it's a man with a very deep, growly voice just talking about, reciting the lyrics or the commentary or whatever it is. So that's not really a proper Manowar song either. So you have an introduction, instrumental, for track one. You have Blood and Steel, which is an okay at best track. You have Sword of the Highlands, which is a pretty good track. And then track four, You Shall Die Before I Die, is not even really a Manowar track. It's a spoken word thing. So you've got two tracks, really, is what you've got. You've got a single.
Yep.
Now, hopefully, the next two EPs, presumably there's two more coming, are going to be a little bit more abundant with legitimate material. Now, I'm sure Joey DeMayo would call me a complete poser and a purveyor of false metal or whatever insult he reserved for me. But Joey, if he sees this, Manowar was one of my favorite bands growing up. I don't know what happened. Just
Yeah.
after Warriors of the World, it just hasn't been the same. It's either been overblown symphonic stuff or just really subpar kind of power chord hard rock riffing like Lord of Steel with some extremely average songwriting. I keep hoping with every Manowar release
Yeah, me
that
too.
it's going to be back to the glory days of Triumph of Steel and Kings of Metal and Fighting the World and Sign of the Hammer. I love that early material. I was the staunchest supporter and defender of this band. But I can't do that anymore. Honestly, I
Very,
can't.
very. I got to say something. That's very well said of you. Everything you spoke about it. Track one is a dud. It's just a symphonic or orchestrated intro. Track four is a spoken word, something out of like a horror movie or maybe a Broadway or a rock opera, right? And then you have
Yeah.
track two and track three. Track two is kind of like a gritty, like a leftover track, like exactly as you said. And if there's anything good out of this EP, it's track three, which is sort of the
Yeah.
ballad like, which is sort of the Highland. It's a ballad. There's a little flute there, orchestration, a nice build up. So that is probably out of four tracks, the third
It's a
one is the
decent
best
track.
one.
That would
Yeah,
be a decent album track, if this was 1988 or 92 or whatever.
yeah,
I feel honestly that Joey and the band, and we know the band is basically Joey, has got so much more in them to offer. I just don't know what's going on. I really don't. This band has fallen so far from
yeah.
where they used to be. I don't know what it would take, whether it's a
Well, I mean, it would probably take Ross the Boss. That's what
well,
I think it would
is
take.
it that is it that simple?
I
I
don't know.
don't.
I don't. Maybe it isn't. But at least we have Ross the Boss to fall back on if we want some sort of new material from Manowar ish, right?
Yeah, I
That's
mean
how I
that's the
look at
thing.
it.
Yeah, I mean to fall back on almost sounds like he's a booby prize or something, which he's not. He's a fantastic musician, great guitar player. So I don't want to disrespect Ross at all. Um, but yeah, I guess my interest in Manowar. I mean, Manowar. Let it be said, they still put on one hell of a live show. Manowar are an amazing. live fan.
So, Charles, tell me about now the new remixes and the remaster.
Well, this is where my interest in Manowar is kind of currently ongoing. I know that there's archive material out there, whether any of it will see the light of day, like the 1986 demos, and an abundance of video stuff that must be in the vaults from the 80s, and music that's never been released or never heard. I really hope that this stuff will see the light of day at some point. Now, for now, we have two albums that have been remastered a number of times, and every time they change a label, these two records seem to be the available catalog to license.
Yeah.
Now, we've had silver editions of Battle Hymns, which was obviously on Capitol licensed to Metal Blade, I think it was was at the time. But for the first time, and I think this is really only precedented by Deep Purple, I think. Not many bands are able to go back and remix an album, meaning go to the multi-track masters where
Yeah.
you have access to every single instrument and clean it up and do a remix. Now
Yeah.
these are done so well. It's like
Excellent.
hearing the album again for the first time.
Or maybe hearing the album. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm hearing instrumentation that was buried in a muddy production previously.
Yeah.
Instrumentation that was very faint is now prominent. It's powerful. This is how remixes should be done. Now, my ears do not detect any modern day tinkering as far as going back and like Dave Mustaine did with the Megadeth, where he actually replayed and resang some stuff. I think that I really don't hold with that too well. There doesn't appear to be any of that on these. They've just used the existing tracks from back in the day, cleaned it up, done a powerful new remix. Everything's clearer. They've actually included some between song
Yes.
in the studio banter as well.
Which actually, it's sort of like the countdown, right? The drum,
Yeah,
the drum, like
like
one, two,
yeah.
three, go, and it's a little studio banter. And you know what, Giles? I would have, if there's anything I didn't like about it, is that just leave the song as the song. We really don't need to know what's going
I
on.
find it. It's brief. It's 5 seconds or whatever
Yeah,
before
well,
each.
yeah, it's not the end of the world. But you know what I did? I did a comparison, right? I took
Yeah.
I took the original or even the remastered, which sounds very dated.
And when you say remaster, you mean the ones from 10 years ago, or whatever.
Yeah,
Not these,
exactly.
not these new remixes.
Well, I mean, actually, I even went further. I went to the originals, which was, back then it sounded great,
Yeah,
but today it doesn't.
yeah.
I went back then. I listened to the remasters and I listened to these. Oh my God, it's exactly how you said it. They have done a spectacular job. This is fresh. This is sounding like in today's audio. What do you want to call it? Today's audio. Today, this is
What?
the sound we're expecting. You know,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, these sound
updated.
incredible. And again, I've got to emphasize, without any re-recording,
Yes.
re-singing, sample replacement on drums, none of that. This is the original instrumentation as recorded back in 1983 and 84, just remixed, cleaned up, and these albums have never sounded better. These are the definitive versions of these albums, I feel.
Yep.
I'm only hoping, obviously, there's other labels involved and licensing and stuff like that, but I've heard word that they are going to move forward and do the other albums. I would love to hear Sign of the Hammer and Fighting the World,
Oh
uh,
yes, yes.
at least done this way. I mean, Kings of Metal and Triumph of Steel are still fairly recent and sounded pretty damn good in the first place and still do, but I would love to hear the original Battle Hymns. I mean, they've re-recorded Battle Hymns and they've re-recorded Kings of Metal and
Yes.
released them in recent years. Now, I don't know if those re-recordings took place because they didn't have access to the original masters, or if they're going to go ahead and do a remix of the original Battle Hymns the way they've just done to Glory Ride and How to England. Sign of the Hammer is what I'm holding out for.
Yep. Yep.
Because that's,
Well, for me, it's fighting the world, but we all have our own favorites, right?
yeah.
Let me just read some text here, fast. So, John, I'm not sure they have any more to offer, and I think that's referring to the EP. Kenny, Manowar, give me Ross the Boss any day. A good point. I mean, he's taken off where Manowar should have been, right? He's continuing the sort of tradition of good
But
music.
that's true, but let's not get carried away. Manowar is still playing massive venues. Ross is playing, respectable clubs
Well,
and
because he doesn't have the name, right? He doesn't have the brand name.
and festivals. So, and that's no disrespect to Ross. I'm a huge Ross fan, but Manowar still have a considerable stronghold. It's not like,
No, no.
you
I
know,
mean, they're using their greatest hits and what they used
yeah,
to be their former glory, right? That's how I look at it. I'm
yeah,
very disappointed in their last studio album, and I'm extremely disappointed in this new EP. Mind you, I'm very excited about the remasters, and that's sort of
me
the
too.
saving
And
grace.
the prospect of archive material,
Yes,
my only disappointment is that these remixes don't have. You can't tell me there's not some bonus outtakes or bonus tracks that no one's heard, or something that could have been added. Now maybe they're saving that for an independent project in itself, like a box set or whatever. But these days bands are really expected to, when they reissue, remix, or remaster catalogs, is to bolster that with an abundance of demos and outtakes and unheard tracks and things like that.
yeah. I don't know. I don't
That
know. For me and Giles, I gotta be honest with you. Every time I buy these bonus track stuff, I never listen to them. I listen to them once, and it's like I don't really want to hear a demo. I really don't. I don't know. Maybe it's just not. It's just me, but I really don't care about
well,
demos. Live
I'm interested.
recordings, yes.
Interested if it's songs that no one's heard before. I'm way into that.
Yeah, I guess it
Sometimes you
depends. To each his own, right? To each his own.
don't need to hear, you know, Master of Puppets Ghetto Blaster mix set
That
number seven,
exactly.
but
Master
a
of
band like
Puppets, 7 CDs of
but
just
a band
garbage,
like
right?
Manowar that has, I guarantee you, three or four unheard compositions, probably,
Yeah, that'd be
or
cool.
five or six or seven from the '80s. They would be a much welcome addition. Even Defender, the original EP that came out in 1983 or '82. The original version of Defender that came out as a 12-inch, that could have been added as a bonus track to Into Glory Ride, and that's a legitimate, 12-inch release that could have been added as a bonus track. You
Good
can't get
point.
that.
Good point. Good point. Good point. And just on another note, and I should talk about this too. So, Manowar has recruited Anders Johansson as the band's new drummer. Carl Logan, who joined Manowar, he of course he had some issues, right, with these 6 counts of third-degree exploitation of a minor. He was
Uh-huh.
arrested, and I guess he's facing charges. Evie Martell has joined as the guitarist, and the sad news of all, of course, is David Shankel, who's scheduled to undergo surgery. So, metal prayers to him
Oh,
next week.
I was not aware of that. That's very
Yes,
sad.
it's very sad after doctors found a tumor in his head during a recent brain scan, which is horrendous news.
Oh my,
So, metal horns to him and metal prayers. Hope this guy, recovers and recovers well, and he goes back to playing some great music.
fantastic musician, as is Ross the Boss, as is everyone who's been in that band. I mean, I really don't want to comment on the Carl Logan thing. The the new guy, well, good. Let's see how he does. The new guitar player.
Yeah,
The drummer change just kind of came out of nowhere. So who knows what the background story that was. One night you had, the guy that they had started the tour with, and the very next night you had Anders. Now I'm assuming a guy, as good as Anders is, a guy can't just come in like, oh, 10 o'clock this morning, you're joining Manowar, and you got to have the set
that's right.
at 8 o'clock. This
You're right.
must have been some sort of handover that was taking place. But
Yeah.
Manowar, they tend to play things very close to, they don't open it up for everyone to know what's going on. They let you know what they want you to know.
All right, so let me go to the comments, okay? Because I didn't finish up on the comments. It's Sunday morning. Yes, it is.
Not here. It's 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon.
Manowar hates the USA. It's not that they hate the USA. They choose not to tour the US because they won't play stadiums there like they do in Europe. So they go, you know what?
Well, no, they won't play stadiums. They can't play stadiums there.
They can't.
The audiences, the fan. There's Manowar fans in America, but it's more widespread. This is an
Exactly.
interesting point.
Exactly.
When someone
Yes.
says band X or band Y hate whatever country, no band hates a country. Bands want to tour absolutely everywhere. It
Where they
all
can make
just
money.
comes
Absolutely.
to finances.
Yeah.
Finances. If the offers are not there to pay the band to bring the show to the country, or to bring the band on some level to the country,
Then forget about it.
it can't be done. Now, Manowar have played the States before. They played the House of Blues or venues like that.
Sure.
They are happy to downscale to make it happen, but there just isn't a demand for Manowar in the United States. My suggestion: book a plane ticket and go see him in another country. People say, "Oh, come to us, come to us." Go to them. Have a holiday. Go to them.
Yeah, I agree
Go
with
see.
that. I kind of like doing that, having little holidays, making an event out of it. Then you go see them, maybe in France, right?
Hmm,
It's fun. It's fun to
Get
do.
off the grass. Go see them.
I was gonna
They,
actually, I was going to go to England and France and go see Flotsam and Overkill, but just things didn't happen. Okay, so because metal has taken a back street to hip hop in the USA. Kenny saying new revenge kills. We're going to get to that. Tom Manowar fired another drummer. Yep, just talked about that. John, so glad you're reviewing the new LA Guns. We'll get to that. An original motif, of course. Manowar has nothing left creatively. Okay, we talked about that. Gods of War was great. Hail to England. I'm not sure they have more to offer. We said that again. Yay, Ross the Boss. He kicks some ass. And are the volume levels okay? Yes, they are. No more Joey DeMeo bass solos. Agree. Joey won't play small venues in North America. We just talked about that. The Europeans always calling for Manowar to play their big festivals. Agreed. Look, they got a brand name, right? And the brand name is gonna pack it in. And I guess they could deliver to a certain degree to to get the people keep coming back. That's what it comes down to.
I've done the club circuit in the United States with various things I'm involved in,
Sure.
and I'm telling you, it is brutal.
Yeah.
It is absolutely brutal. Trying to put a show like that into clubs and bars in the United States, even a halfway respectable downscaled version of the show, can be a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Agreed.
unless there's an audience and there's some sort of infrastructure that wants the band there, I don't blame them. When you can go to Europe and play massive, massive venues.
Yeah.
Sad but true. A lot of bands are finding themselves in this situation. There just isn't the audience in the United States.
That's it. And you got to go where the money is because you got to pay the bills. Bottom line.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
don't go where the money's not. You do what you can if it's feasible, and if it's not, you just have to go, well, you know what? We need to go where we're popular.
Exactly. And that kind of concludes everything. And just to summarize, Manowar, the final battle, part one, which we'll get part two and part three coming out, I guess, in the short term sometime.
Yeah,
And just to summarize, it was a thumbs down for me. I wish it was. I was expecting a lot better. The production, though, is very good. I'm not
true.
going to knock down the production. Eric is the vocals are they're not bad. They're pretty good. I
He's
mean,
a great singer. He's a really good singer. A little bit too much of this raspy kind of.
yeah, because he lost a little bit of the range up there, right on the
I
higher
liked
end.
it when he sang more. Triumph of Steel and before. Ever since Louder Than Hell, he's kind of got this more aggressive, raspy kind of bark. And that's nothing against him. He's still 20 times better than your average heavy metal singer ever
Yeah.
will be or ever dreams to be. But there's just something changed around Louder Than Hell, the way he delivered things and the way he sung. Everything kind of became this very staccato, almost shouted, but musically and vocally still very, very good, but just different. A little bit like what Bruce Dickinson was doing on Fear of the Dark and No Prayer, and thankfully he kind of got over that.
Yeah. Well, just to summarize, Hail to England, definitely like 9 out of 10. I mean, if you love that album, you're gonna love this
Oh,
album
geez,
even
I'm
more.
not even going to rate those albums. The first four Manowar albums, first five, first six, first seven, are 10 out of 10 albums for
Oh,
me. 10 out of
incredible.
10.
To me, Hail to England is my favorite. That's my favorite album. And to hear it at such the quality of the recording or the remastering, the remixing, I'm so happy. I'm so pleased. Definitely.
I wish more bands would do this with their instead of
Yeah.
remastering an already muddy production.
Oh
If
yeah,
they could
yeah. Remix
remix
it. Remix it.
remix respectfully, if you have access to it, and put it out because that's how this music's going to live on, sounding updated, and so people 10 years from now are going to want to listen to it without
Yeah.
going, oh.
All right. So let's go. Let's go down the agenda now. We've talked about Manowar. Let's talk about A New Revenge. Let me see if I
Ripper
can
Owens.
bring up the picture. Yeah, A New Revenge.
Who else? Who else is in that band, Jimmy? Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, I could bring it up. I'm just trying to change the picture here to get Ripper's picture up. Tim Ripper Owens, of course, we know from Judas Priest, Iced Earth, Yngwie Malmsteen, Dio Disciples. Kerry Kelly,
Charles
Slash's
Damned.
Snake Pit, Alice Cooper, and I guess some time in Rat. James
Yeah.
Kotak from the Scorpions and, of course, Kingdom Come on drums. Rudy Sarzo from every band in the world, of course, Ozzy Osbourne, Quiet Riot, Whitesnake, Dio, and so on and so on. All right. I know, look, I listened to it a lot. For the last 2 days, I've been listening to this album a lot, and I was kind of blown away. Blown away because it's not typical Ripper Owens. It's not the Priest style of singing. He is actually singing in a more of a melodic, less of the falsetto stuff happening, more of a. This album proves that Tim Ripper Owens is not only a screamer, but he's a singer. Agree or disagree?
I agree. Something we've always known if you kind of look at tracks
Yeah.
like Hell It's Home or Lost and Found and things like that from the Judas Priest Demolition album. He's been pigeonholed as that screamer thing, the screaming type of singer. The projects like the Three Tremors didn't do him any favors because that was just three guys all screaming over top of each other as far as I'm concerned. And it was a good album, but I mean it was all about kind of one thing. Let's go for it,
Yeah.
all three of you now. But this shows what a great singer he actually is, because I was concerned he was getting a bit pigeonholed as the guy that can, shriek his head off and nothing more. Now this shows what a great singer he is.
And you know what? It not only shows what a great singer he is, but what a great songwriter he is. So I texted him yesterday and I asked him, Tim, who wrote the songs on this album? And he told me it was him and Carrie who wrote the majority of the stuff on the album.
Good for him, because
Yeah.
I mean, songs are great, the album's great, the vocals are great, and I really hope this doesn't just turn into a one and done kind of project. It'd be
Yeah,
nice to
yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5 albums, because he really. We've talked about this. The working singer, the guy that, it's what they do for a living. They've got to make money. So if they're singing on 8 records a year, they're singing on 8 records a year. But it does cheapen your brand, and people just don't really know where to look. What's your band?
Yeah.
I hope he can establish himself within this maybe as something ongoing that can be his own.
Yeah. But just to go through the album, I actually told Ripper this yesterday, and he probably doesn't like me for saying this, but I go, it sounds somewhere between Judas Priest, Alice Cooper, and Night Ranger. And people are going to say, Night Ranger, Sister Christian. No.
Nothing
The
wrong with
hard
Night
rockin' melodic portion of Night Ranger, that sort of easy, accessible melodicness of Night Ranger.
Do you remember in the 80s when someone asked Kerry King who the best guitar duo was, and he
Yeah,
said
that's right.
Jeff Watson, Brad Gillis from Night Ranger, and people ripped him apart. Night Ranger
Brad Gillis is like
hell,
killer.
have a hell of a guitar duo, so I don't blame him at all for saying
Too
that.
flashy guitarist.
I love it.
And not only does Night Ranger, and again, they had their, very the ballad-like songs. Forget about those. We'll talk about the hard rocking songs with the melody and the ripping guitar solos. That part of Night Ranger, and of course Judas Priest, because he can't escape that Judas Priest style, right? That
No.
and that's like a more of a brutal style. And then of course
Yeah.
there's the Alice Cooper. There's a lot of songs that sort of had that flavor of Alice Cooper in the '80s. We'll call it from the Poison. We'll call it the Poison era. If we, and basically when you take all three of these bands and you put it together, you get this style called A New Revenge. And I don't know, man. There are like every song is a hit single. If you ask me, if this was the '80s, they would release 8 songs with 8 videos, and each song would do fairly well. If this was the '80s and there was money behind it, care to comment?
I agree. You've covered it. I can't add anything to what you said because I agree with all of it 100%. It's a great record. Another contender for an album of the year for me. Put it alongside the Starbreaker Dysphoria record. And great. Yeah, I'm going to be listening to that for a long time. Great record.
Oh,
Just
me
don't.
too.
I mean, my only thing I can say to those guys is don't let this be one and done. Keep going with a second, a third, a fourth, if you can, if you're able to.
Yeah,
If
and
this
I
is
got to
so-
say though, Tim Rip, like you said, the Three Tremors came out. That's kind of like one style, which is good, which is great. Don't get me wrong. And then A Spirit of Fire, I thought was good too, but it kind of was sort of like in the same vein. But this is completely a hard rockin'
It's
album.
funny. I mean, I know, and I would have thought that the drummer of Spirits of Fire, Mark Zonda, would have probably been more into the new music on New Revenge than Spirits of Fire, and not to say that he didn't, was not the right guy for Spirits of Fire or didn't enjoy that, but I know that he's a fan of quality melodic hard rock and heavy metal. So New Revenge would have been perfect for him too. You know.
Yeah, I don't think so. A couple of comments saying that Rudy Sarzo's out. I don't think he's out, or he may be out, or maybe he was just hired as a session player. I don't
If
think
he
he's
was,
out.
if he wasn't a songwriter, then just get a new guy and keep going with the primary songwriters.
Yeah, he just wasn't on the rock video. That's all it was. It's Phil Suzanne who's actually took over on the video.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I'm
No,
not sure.
again, these are projects, and sometimes these people don't even live in the same country as each other. So
Yeah,
not everyone can get together for a video or on tour with another band.
yeah. So, which leads us to our. So, I would rate it very high. The A New Revenge. Definitely, something like 8.7. And again, that's just from just 2 days of listening to it. I don't know
Yeah.
what the future holds, but 8.6, 8.7. That's Enemies and Lovers on Golden Robot Records. Production is great, and the sound is really good, actually. From the three that he's released, this is probably the best in terms of sound. Very contemporary today, but also a lot of 80s flavor there. Tim's just doing a remarkable job. So hats off to everybody on that project. The last
Yeah.
one, the last one,
8 out of 10 for me as well.
okay. The last one is LA Guns. So, I mean, a lot of hype on this album. But what does everybody really think
Well,
about this new
this
album?
is this now. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is the second one now with the
Yes.
reunification of Tracy
Yeah.
Guns and Phil Lewis. The second studio album. There's been a live album in the middle. This band is a mess. Historically, it's an absolute mess. There's been, got to be at least 50 people in and out of that band, at least seven or eight lead vocalists at various times, people coming, people going, the band splitting into two different versions, then those versions also sharing lead singers and
Oh, yeah.
swapping people around, and you know what I mean. So I just it's just an absolute mess. Their legacy has really been tarnished by utter dysfunction and chaos. But hopefully, with the last album and this one now both being the Phil Lewis, Tracy Guns, the
Reunion.
reunification of kind of two opposing versions of LA Guns, you've now got something that can kind of be built upon, and they can go forward doing it, seriously and properly with with the real classic people involved that people want to see when they go to see LA Guns.
Yeah, yeah. So what did you think of, before we get into The Devil You Know, which is the new album, what did you think of The Missing Piece? Do you remember it? Or did you
Yeah, I
ever
do.
listen to it?
I thought that. Now I'm not gonna lie. I'm not like a mad fan of LA Guns. I think they're great guys, and I think Phil Lewis is a good singer, and I liked him with Girl as well, going back even before LA Guns. So no issue there. I just I'm not like a crazy big fan, but I thought it was a really good album, and I think it was right kind of back with what they needed to do to get the credibility back
Mm-hmm.
after all this, like, two and a half decades of chaos since the vicious circle or cycle album.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a good return. What did you think of it?
I liked it too. I thought it was a good return. Again, I'm like you. I was never a big LA Guns fan to begin with. I always found that they were like and I want to be nice here. I found that they were always like a second tier Guns N' Roses. I mean, of course, there's a history with them together. Even Cocked and Loaded, which I do like. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but I think
Now,
it's a great album.
who was on Cocked and Loaded? That was back in the turn of the millennium when Phil
Yeah,
Lewis came back, right?
that's right.
And then, oh no, Cocked and Loaded was the second.
Cocked and
Reloaded.
Loaded was no, yes, yes. It was
Yeah.
it was their second album. It was with the big hit, which
Yeah.
Ballad of Jane was on it, right?
Yeah, you're right. And then they did Cocked and Reloaded, which was a re-recording of that they did in the turn of the millennium kind of period. Yeah.
Yeah. So LA Guns was their first one, the self-titled, then Cocked and Loaded, then Hollywood Vampires, which are kind of like and Vicious Circles, which were the ones that people sort of gravitate
Yeah.
towards, and everything went to hell, right? After
And then,
that.
and then after then you get into like American Hardcore, which was a different singer, and then you get into
Yes,
the Shrinking Violet with Jizzy Pearl, and then you had the Wasted EP with the guy from Steel Panther on vocals, and then you get into just from then on it's just a mess. And I think about 2000, 2001, Phil Lewis came back and they did a couple of records with kind of like they're doing now, with the proper band, but then it fell apart again. and
Yeah.
they had two versions. Phil went ahead with his version.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then,
It's a
then
disaster.
Tracy had his version, and then there was members crossing over from
And now
one
you have
version.
a third version, right?
And
For
then I think
festivals.
it was who was the original singer? Last name was Black.
I don't remember.
Yeah, he
Forgot.
came. I mean, he was releasing demos and of his time in LA Guns, and he joined Tracy's version, then left, and it was just. I mean, it must have been a nightmare to be a fan,
You know,
just to
L.A. Phil Lewis's L.A. Guns, and the court said he can tour like that, and it was just
Tracy Guns, LA Guns.
Phil
I
Lewis's
think
L.A. Guns, wasn't it?
I think they were LA Guns, and then Tracy Guns was
Oh
Tracy
yeah,
Guns.
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
See what I mean? Like, unless you're really a
I'm getting
diehard,
confused with Rat. I'm getting confused with Rat.
unless you're really a diehard fan, you're not going to know this stuff, and it's all just going to seem very chaotic. And you're gonna go, you're
And
gonna
how many
at a
people are
point,
they getting anyways in the
you,
clubs for L.A.
you,
Guns, right?
you just kind of go enough already. It's too chaotic. I'm out. That's
Yeah,
the problem. That's why they need to build on this newfound credibility by having
agreed,
Phil
agreed.
Tracy back.
Agreed. So let's okay. So we talked about their history. We talked about the last album. So how does this album compare the missing piece? Sorry, the Devil You Know compared to their last album, the missing piece. Are things getting better? Are things
Yeah, I
becoming more
think so. I think
uniform?
this again, as I said, this builds on what was established with the missing piece, and it's a good album. I think it'll do well for them. And again, they need to keep this going. There needs to be a third album with Phil and Tracy together, a fourth one. Just really keep building it up and getting back, as I said, that key word, getting back that credibility that they're not, a band that just exists so they can break up every couple of years.
Yeah. So I'm going to just talk about this album really quickly. I thought, first of all, the production's very raw. Okay, don't expect
Always has been with them though, really, hasn't it?
except for the '90s and the '80s, where it was a little more glossed over in the reverb, right?
Even then, they were a little bit more punky and a little bit more stripped down than most of those bands. And that even you hear it on the debut.
Yeah, yeah. This album is very LA-ish or Hollywood-ish. Sort of that faster Pussycat sound, that Aerosmith sound, the punkiness, and I think there's a lot of cool tracks on this album. Again, I'm not the biggest LA Guns fan, but I think if I was an LA Guns fan, I would really, really enjoy this album. I think this would be a stellar album in my collection. But being a sort of a casual LA Guns fan, I think it's good. I think it's a good album. I mean, Rage and Stay Away and Loaded Bomb. I think Tracy Gunn is really delivering some great solos.
Great, really
Another
good.
Season in Hell. I don't know if you remember that song. This is a very slow track, very dynamic, and Tracy Gunn again at his best, and Phil Lewis sounding great. I mean, he's got that punky edge to his voice, the raspiness, and The Devil
Yeah.
You Know. I think that's maybe a nod to Doom and Black Sabbath, very mid-tempo Sabbath-like song, and Needle to the Bone, another great track. So overall, I think it's a great album. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's, like you said, it's a continuation of the last album. They're on track, and I'd like to see them continue this way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Any final comments on LA Guns?
No, I think you've covered it. Tracy Guns is a great musician, a great guitar player. I saw them live fairly recently, and I was surprised at how good they were. They really kicked some ass live in this new configuration with Phil back. A very impressive live band.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'd seen them prior to that with different lineups, and it was just like a bar band kind of deal. I'm not going to name which side I'm talking about, but I mean now that they're both back together, very good live band, and they're putting out good quality records again. So this is great.
Okay, so
Good.
let me just read some comments here before we end things off. Let's see what we got here. I'm just going to read a few.
Okay.
Going to see LA Guns in New York City that's Kenny in 2 weeks. That's cool. LA Guns, no cohesion. Love the song Speed from the last album. Quite possibly their best song. Klaus made it before the end of the stream. Hi from Sweden.
Hi, Sweden.
Yes,
I was just,
you know
yeah,
what? What happened was
I was
we
just
started
in-
early because that's the way it goes. Because Charles had to go out. Happy birthday, celebrating his birthday weekend. He wanted to go out early for supper because in Germany it's almost supper time there.
I'm going to see Thunder
Oh,
actually.
yes, you're going to go see Thunder. Very cool.
Thunder. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, it's pretty much it. I mean, if there's any other comments anybody wants to write, feel free to write something in there. Giles,
If you missed the show, you can rewind and watch this after, right?
yes, you can. It's on repeat. So that's pretty much it. I mean, happy birthday, Giles, from Kenny.
Thank you, Kenny. You rock, man.
Uh, Giles, how old are you?
Yeah.
You're 40 now, right?
I'm 40. 40 years of
Metal.
something.
Any closing remarks? What are you up to?
Going to see Thunder tonight. Good British band.
What about touring? Graham Bonnet? What's going on there?
Oh, there's always something going on, there's always something going on. I mean, I'm on the road with this, that, and the other thing, and I think I'm going to be doing a little bit of the other thing next month.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Have yourself a great night. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. That was LA Guns. We give it a thumb up. Two thumbs up. Two thumbs up. And for Manowar, well, we gave it a thumb up and a thumb down because we kind of liked the remasters and the remixes, but we didn't really dig the new
No,
EP.
I want to definitely draw a distinction. The remixes rule.
Remixes.
They rule.
And we gave two thumbs up.
The new
A
EP,
New Revenge.
not so much.
All right, I kind of like the way we do things. We kind of like talk about a whole bunch of albums instead of just one.
The new Revenge is awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And
All right.
hold up your album there that you started the show off.
Okay, well, I suggest everyone listens to Starbreaker Dysphoria. This is a great album. We did cover this as well.
Yes. Tony Harnell.
Tony Harnell, great singer.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have yourself a great Sunday.
All right.